I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. Lovely day in New York City. We hit a little rain. Thanksgiving. Andrew, are you excited for all the backyard turkey that one could possibly eat?
I ain't frying any turkeys, but I am excited, or I am scared of this weird pocket, these weird pockets of our calendar. That's what do they call, like when whiskey evaporates from the barrel, like the devil's cut or something. Like the days and weeks just kind of like evaporate. It's like it's Monday before Thanksgiving, and I feel like my life has no purpose. Do you know what I mean?
I understand the whole part about life not having any purpose, for sure.
I mean,
but tell me more about, as they say, the devil's cut.
Well, like it's only Monday. A lot can happen in a day, 2 days, 3 days. But the anticipation of this Thursday, and a lot of traveling happens, but it's not like Christmas where you can spend a week with your family. It's kind of like bada boom for Thanksgiving, where we celebrate something very nebulous. I think at this point in 2024, it's just chilling with your family and some kind of fried bird in your backyard. But like, should I go to my studio after we pod, make the perfect pod? I don't know. Should I log on to Basketball Reference? Should I fire off some perfect tweets? It just doesn't matter because it's like this transient few days before the inevitable stuffing session.
Yeah, I think there are these periods of the year, the devil's cut, as many people call them.
That's what they call a slashing forward in the NBA.
Christmas to New Year's, absolutely a devil's cut.
Christmas, New Year's is the devil's cut.
I mean, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's more maybe that's the angel share as opposed to the devil's cut.
Maybe I'm thinking of the angel share, and there was an ad for a whiskey that called it the devil's cut. But you're right. And to a degree, all of August is the angel share. But maybe
yes, I agree.
The last week of August, especially, and where everyone's like, fuck it, there's a lot of work to be done in September next week, but I'm just doing nothing right now. And I have all week. I'm like, bro, it's already Friday. It's like, ooh, my week is gone.
I think there's also, more than before at least, January is getting more and more devil's cut.
Wow. Is it the sober January vibe?
Well, I felt as if it was like a couple days in, like, all right, January 1st, you hang out a little bit, you get back to work. Now it's like, I don't know, people are just doing the August thing, but from December 15th to January 15th.
Mm-hmm. Is this, I always got confused. Is America too lazy or not lazy enough? Because, I've heard both things growing up. It's like, oh, in certain countries, they do siestas where they take a long lunch and the afternoons aren't really important. Or someone just told me in Canada, everyone kind of like stops working at 5 and has a drink, sort of like happy hour, but they call it something. But then you talk about the Japanese and the Chinese who never take time off. They got that dog, that Kobe Bryant in the lab dog. I don't know where America stands. Are we perfect? Are we right in the middle?
I think America is probably the worst of all worlds when it comes to this one. Well, no. I mean, the worst of one world would be, say, China, where people are working incessantly.
And have no freedoms. So no intellectual freedom, right?
There's that part.
Yeah.
But that would be the devil's cut in this situation.
Which
and then
is
Europe, Europe, I think, is a better system than the United States. You get more time off. It's paid. People get to travel.
Mm-hmm.
Like in America, you have more of a leisure class that now is a working remote class that's able to just travel willy nilly. Like, yeah, I'm just going to be gone for 2 months. All good. I'll answer some emails on the beach. I'm out.
Mhm.
And then you have the vast majority of Americans who are like, all right, yeah, I got 1 day off for Christmas. I got 1 day off for Thanksgiving. And I'm not getting paid vacation time. And I'm back on the JO.
Oh, you just created a child. 3 months should be enough, sufficient. After 3 months, you're ready to come back to the office. Um, I mean, I don't want to bury the lead. What are you cooking for Thanksgiving?
Well, I'm going upstate. And, when we're up there, my family members, the ones who are not American, they want the traditional Thanksgiving. They didn't grow up with turkey and mashed potatoes, carrots,
Stuffing, cornbread,
stuffing, all those things.
cranberry.
So we're going traditional.
That's
And you know what? We almost gave up on turkey, but Allison Roman's recipes are pretty good.
Tell me about it.
It's a good bird. I feel like it's got a dry rub. Maybe you put it in the fridge for a day early or something like that. Maybe a few days. I forget exactly, but it's a good bird. I can't deny it.
I'm a fan of hers, and like, if you do turkey breast right, like at a barbecue spot, it is like the most delicious thing ever. Um, but I think the turkey, sort of like Jared McCain, is can be excellent, but the ceiling is relatively lower, right? Um, and I'm talking about if someone's like, "Hey, we're not doing turkey, we're just doing a bunch of fried chicken," you'd be like, "I will accept that offer." Or if it was a duck, I love Peking duck, so that's my go-to. I'm going to a party down the street with some friends, and the host is making a prime rib. What do you think about that?
There's a lot of critiques of the turkey as a dry, uninteresting bird. But to me, that's the point here. You
Is it
only
a-
really eat it once a year outside of perhaps a sandwich that was too
If you're a
small or too huge.
child, right?
But typically it would be sliced. Your boar's head E. coli turkey sandwich. Other than that, it's just Thanksgiving. It's the only time you're going to actually cook a turkey as a regular person. So that's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to cheat. Oh yeah, I'm making a prime rib. No, you're cheating. Go get that stupid bird and cook it like you're supposed to. These are the rules. Stop being unethical.
I always thought, and oddly, yeah, I always thought turkey was more than just itself. So if someone's like, "Would you like a turkey dinner?" I'm like, if it's turkey, there needs to be gravy on it. If there's no gravy, it's not kind of what I expected. Obviously, you can put on mayonnaise, slap it in between bread, infantile yourself, become a child again. Those simple joys of eating a sandwich that you no longer enjoy as an adult because you have a knife and fork. But the gravy is the dish, right? It's two components. Like I don't want to get into is a hot dog a sandwich debate, but I'm trying to think of other things like spaghetti. If you get spaghetti, obviously the pasta itself is technically spaghetti, but I'm like, well, where's the sauce? Like, oh, here's the gravy. And with the gravy, it's reasonably delicious.
I think you are neglecting the stuffing as well here.
I don't mess with stuffing.
Wow. Whoa.
I mean, talk about carb on carb, but okay, when you say stuffing, what do you mean?
I don't think it needs to be technically stuffed in the bird
These are my questions.
anymore. There were, I guess, some health concerns about that. I don't know. That was
Wait,
what was
what?
going around. About, actually, it's probably not as smart to cook it right in the bird because it may not cook
dries it out?
through.
Oh,
It may not cook through some stuff. So now everyone kind of just does it in a pan.
the forbidden stuffing. Mm.
But I feel like you got to have the stuffing there. You got to go carb on carb.
And everything gets the gravy. Green-
Everything gets the gravy.
Yeah, it is closer to the traditional dish served in Rochester than we want to admit. But even if the gravy gets on the mac and cheese, all good. If the gravy gets on the sweet potatoes, I'll live.
It is the garbage plate of holidays.
Do you call plates plates? Is that the right way to say it? If you're at a barbecue cookout, do you say, "Can you make me a plate?"
Yeah, I'll usually find the nearest woman and just demand that they fix me a plate.
That
Like,
was
oh,
always
I'm so hungry and I see that food over there and I can't figure out the vehicle by which to get that food to me. Perhaps one of the lady folk would like to fix me up one.
I forget which movie it was. It was either Menace to Society or Boys in the Hood, where like the elder statesman sits down at the cookout and he's like, "Is anyone going to give me a plate?" And as a young man, that's the thing I took away from one of those two movies was just like, is a plate a standardized concoction? Because if I roll into a cookout or a buffet, I'm not letting anyone else make my plate. Fuck that. I'm doing it myself. A plate is not a plate. A plate is just a thing. And I don't even use them. I use my sink.
Is Yeah, I feel like you could get a plate back and it could have been totally sabotaged.
I'm saying, right? It's like there's no gravy on these cranberries.
Well, it's like, well, I gave you equal portions of everything. You have as much cranberry sauce as you do
Yeah,
turkey.
that's what I'm talking about, man. And it's like even the turkey itself, I would say you get one piece of breast, dry ass breast, and then maybe some pulled like dark meat pieces. I think that's a nice array. But is that the standardized quote unquote plate?
I mean, yes, if it's in the hands of a true plate
Maestro.
master.
If Caitlin Clark was doling out the food, yes, that's indeed a plate.
So you're going to be eating over the sink, I'm sure, this holiday.
Someone
But
else.
I know you're also really disappointed because you loved eating over the sinks of outdoor restaurants. The sink being the cracks in the floor of an outdoor dining shack where your food could simply drop to the frenzy of rats that could feast on it below.
The asphalt of Chat Square is my sink. It's a
So there
20-second
have to
moment.
be gone all these outhouses and these hovels that we've been gorging in since the pandemic.
I saw.
They got to be gone by the end of the week.
They got to be gone. Can they come back? Is this a permanent thing or are they standardizing it?
I'm glad you asked, Andrew.
I want to know.
From my understanding, the ones who are permitted, as in they have permits, which would give them permission, I think April. So it's definitely seasonal.
Wow. I
So
mean,
this is sorry to cut you off because I
no.
want your take on this.
I got
This would be a real thumb in the eye at the people who say, well, we should be in these outdoor shacks during cold weather months because of COVID,
Mm.
which was the original intent of why they exist.
They were getting ragged, right? Like the wood was untreated or unpainted or unkept, and a lot of them had like the detritus of New York City life on them, whether that be trash bags, dogs taking shits, garbage trucks rolling by, splashing dirty Chat Square water on your new outdoor enclosure. And it's hard to maintain because it costs money. People don't really care. You got people just defacing it with beautiful graffiti or ugly graffiti. Um, I'm kind of torn because you know how I feel about cars taking up public space. But is a private restaurant with a menu of their creation exactly public?
I agree with that fully. And I'm not even coming at this from a car owner's perspective. If they said, hey, these are going to be no parking spots, I'd be like, well, I'd prefer you could park there, but I don't have any
Right.
agenda
Right.
on this.
Right.
I'm not saying good riddance to those outhouses. So now I can park there. That's not actually my point. And I
Right.
feel like parking is also just sort of there's never going to be parking spots regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of them, add more, whatever. There's just never going to be good parking anyway.
Yep. Yep.
Like it's always going to be the same, whether you got rid of parking or there wasn't. It's going to
Like
be
3-and-D
tough to
wings
find
in
one,
the NBA every summer. We got to get a
whatever it
3-and-D
is.
wing. Yeah.
So my main point about it is that I'm all for outdoor dining, and I think it is lovely to have a meal outside, cafe seating, little table. You can have a beer. So European. You're in a square. It's like being in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
Great. But that's not what outdoor dining in a shack was like.
No. No.
Like, oh yeah, it gave us a chance to meet fellow New Yorkers. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I saw some headline. I'm like, that's as opposed to what, indoor dining where you can't meet other people, or walking down the street, or going to a literally anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we get the chance to mingle in outdoor dining. I'm like, you get the chance to mingle every time you leave the house. Too many chances to mingle, in my opinion.
Ugh. It's too easy to make adult friends. I mean,
We need an epidemic of loneliness to cull some of these unwanted friendships.
the chat square fascists won. MAGA took the election. We have a new conservative era. Jack's wife Frida, I concede to you this European dining. But, of all my hatred and all my ignorance, I walked by Jack's wife Frida and I'm like, this ain't bad. I don't care. It's not like I claim Dickhead Triangle as my own. I'm just passing on through like a ship in the night. So, like, fine. It looks good. It looks better than those like plywood enclosures. Um, I love Essex Market, and they closed the basement of that. But in the Essex Market, when you walk in, it's kind of like a failure. But there's certain great things. Shout out to Nordic Preserves, but they're constructing kind of an outdoor seating themed sandwich spot inside Essex Market with an awning as if it was like shielding you from the sun and the rain, and small tables sort of like in the style of Europe. It's kind of funny and kind of awesome, and it's right next to like real old school spots that like don't really, like, two different auras clashing. Do you think restaurants or food courts should start building outdoor enclosures inside?
Mm. There's a Polish restaurant on
We went.
Greenpoint Avenue.
We dined together there. That place
Yeah,
is awesome.
it
It's
kind of has
sick.
a shack in there.
Yeah, man. Well, and we also go to Szechuan Mountain House that has like kind of the outdoor
Yeah,
wooden kind of tables.
that's kind of shack themed in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like it. It's kind of cool. It's not great for like
Yeah,
filling it up, but fuck
they
do I
need to
care?
ban indoor dining and make every
Yes,
place outdoor dining.
outdoor
Or is it
indoor dining.
indoor? Yeah, one of those two, depending on which makes more sense.
Yo, if I
Um,
walked into like a sushi restaurant and there was a fucking river flowing through it and like grass and someone like with a net scooping out salmon, I'd be like, two, please.
you need to check out this hot new spot called Sea over in Williamsburg.
Um, I took my son into a chocolate shop that had a chocolate fountain in it this weekend. Holy shit. He was captivated. It was like three
I mean,
walls, sort of.
it's so Wonka coded.
It's exactly Wonka coded, but it was like sort of like sandwiches are regular food for children. This was the restaurant C for children. So instead of the underlit neon plexiglass with water flowing over it with terrible dumplings and kind of great looking cocktails and nightlife, this was chocolate for children. Like chocolate for
And
children.
were there other elements that made it feel, I don't know, Wonka-ish?
No, it was European. It was the Venchi shop in Union Square. So there were like $2 morsels of chocolate with like advent calendars, which I'm buying up now these days for my neighbors, and sorbet, which is and gelato, which is not that kid friendly, just in language only.
Now that we figured out what New York City needs, which is outdoor
Outside.
indoor dining or indoor outdoor dining,
Mm-hmm.
we can just have tables outside. To me, that's the key, is that if the idea is that people are going to enjoy nice weather or sitting outside,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't need to have seating when the weather is bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like,
you don't
that's
have to
the
put out the
point
table.
here.
Yeah.
So the structures were so that you could sit outside in bad weather, which is not the point of being outside.
Right.
To me, this is just getting back to the way that humans have always lived. Oh, it's nice out. I would like to sit outside. Not, oh, it's really shitty and cold and rainy. Let me sit outside and have my meal.
Or it's New York City and let me sit outside inside.
Which is now how all the
Every
smart people are living. Like, you go to Chat Square, like, boom, you don't even know if you're indoors or outdoors. They're putting highways to the middle of restaurants. There's like 8 streets. It's just all asphalt as far as you can see.
Fuck it. Dietrich invites you over for Thanksgiving. You walk into his apartment and there's grass. He's deep frying a bird. There's
Like,
trees.
is that a miniature BQE that I'm just sitting under? It's just incredible.
Am I touching grass and touching
Is this
glass at the same time?
the K Bridge?
um, yeah. Shit. I mean, there's a restaurant near where I live that does this beautiful like Art Deco French outdoor seating, and they put money into it with like custom curved metal. What do you call it? Like piping or bars, and then they put the glass and plexiglass with stained glass embedded in, plants, flowers. It's kind of epic, and they've been on the forefront of like trying to get the city to let them do it. I think they're documented going to city hall and petitioning and all this stuff. It's kind of annoying when you walk by because like it creates this weird bottleneck. A lot of garbage gets built up near there. It is not like the beautiful Parisian ideal, the Champs Elysees that they claim to be.
So I was thinking about a similar topic. You know, the metro in Paris, they have these beautiful metal sort of sculptural works over the top of each train station that you can
That's
see
what I'm
as
talking
you
about.
walking up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking, like,
Toulouse-Lautrec.
would I prefer to have the green lights of New York City?
And
If
those were
someone
for
said,
safety.
hey,
Yeah.
right, if someone said, hey, we're swapping them out. We're getting rid of the green lights and we're making these beautiful edifices that when you walk in, you see this sculpture, and it's going to be made by Kith.
Oh wow. Okay, we're getting corporate.
It's going to have like a huge Jada kiss. He's going to be welcoming you
The Kith,
into the
right.
subway. Fat Joe is there on his way to another sporting event. But main point, do we want to soup up subway entrances, or do we just like the green light? I was grappling with this. I don't have a good answer, Andrew.
Well, you know that new subway in Hudson Yards near the Suicide Gyro? Like they commissioned all these great contemporary artists to make tile works, and like it is beautiful, but is it functional? Like does it make your day better? Like I'm not so sure. They're market artists that like have fame in one circle and kind of are are ignorable in other circles. And I I think about the subways too much. I think any beautification works, but I'm into more than less. Even modernism is more. Any point of view is better than those globes, which were originally created to signify safety, right? If it was late at night in the 70s and 80s and there wasn't someone on duty there in a booth, the lights would tell you. This was for the spree of crime. The last time New York was fun during Ed Koch and before. Like, And then now they're just aesthetically pleasing things that remind us of like checkered cabs and dirty dogs in Central Park.
They are still functional though. I mean, you can
They
see
were.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, but now
Not
there's
not in this
no
not
one
in the
in.
same way, right? Where, as you said, it was yeah, it was like if they were half illuminated or something. It was that the
Yeah.
place was open, but there wasn't a attendee. But right now, half of them don't have attendees anyway, and the ones that have attendees, the attendee isn't paying attention. So
No.
what's the
Yo,
difference?
hear me out here. This is an aside, but remember that Seinfeld episode where you can adopt a highway to beautify, and Kramer like gets rid of a lane, all that stuff.
Hmm.
I'm not saying they should do that with every subway platform, but they should have at least one person on the subway platform to tidy up, not to clean it. That's not really their job. That's for the sanitation department. But like to answer questions, because on the weekends it's like, oh, the A's not running here, but it's running here, but it's making stops on the C. Like just to tell people what's happening, because sometimes it's hard to decipher the changes on the weekends and on at nights in the subway. Just have like in Taipei, there's always one person on the platform greeting you, telling you if there's anything you should know, making sure you don't throw your trash on the ground, all that stuff. And I'm not a conservative. I don't think they should privatize it. But what if like Abu Dhabi wanted to get their logo on the Knicks jerseys and also the platform leading into MSG? And the requirement would be you need to hire someone there to help people with this service.
This would be an opportunity for someone such as myself to talk about the cost benefit ratio of, say, police in the subways, because what you're describing seemingly could go under the jurisdiction of the cops who are making so much money off of overtime to stand around in the subways. That wouldn't they just make themselves useful? Like,
But they don't
pick up
have.
a little trash, tell people which
But they
train to
can't
get on.
arrest people, right? Like it would just be like instead of sitting behind in a booth with the orbs, you come out from behind the booth and you stand there and be like, "The train is 20 minutes late. The train is not coming tonight."
Well, I'm with you. I'm only suggesting if we're paying people to be down there anyway, they could just get off of Candy Crush and instead tell people that like the L is running local. Or we could take the money that's going to them and we could hire your army of subway servants.
You mean people who clean up platforms?
I'm with you. I'm saying get the cops out of the subways or just take a fraction of their salary and hire some people who can walk around and be like, yeah, sorry, the G's a little slow tonight. And then maybe you guys want some, like, can I help you with a little drink, little snack? It'd be nice.
I mean, I'm saying, and it's like, oh, this is the Seinfeld Kramer platform. It's like, oh, the lights are red. It doesn't have to be custom, but it's like, oh, we have refreshments because remember they used to have newsstands when there were newsstands in like the Astor Place stop.
I loved newsstands in subways.
I agree. There's still one on 14th that sells like comic books now, but there used to be one on West 4th. They closed that down. I used to cop the new Slam magazine shot by Atiba Jefferson down there. It was cool.
Grab yourself a copy of Stress.
I told you I used to be intern at Stress, but yeah, like not to say that that's totally necessary, but drinks maybe. I mean, food on the platform is debatable. Maybe if they made it French style in the Bowery station.
What about, say, soup? Like, oh, here, oh, you're a little hungry. Give you a bowl, a spoon, pour in some really scalding hot liquid,
No weapons,
and you can just
no
get on the
weapons.
subway
Yeah.
and bumping people. I think that would, lend itself to great civic pride.
Here's a cup of molten sugar that you can purchase for $50. No, 50 cents. I don't know the price of sugar these days. Please don't pour it on your local nemesis.
We
Arguing
have
about
to
where to
stop
sit.
selling razor blades. People just don't shave on the train. But what if they do? What if you got a big meeting and you came out and you realized you missed a spot? We gotta sell razor blades on the subway.
This cup of acid is gonna proved to be regretful. Bringing this on the Pack 6 train is not a great idea.
I have to do a science experiment before I get to Astor Place.
Yeah, these brass knuckles. I don't know what to do with them. I'll take one. One brass knuckle, please. um, but I took the subway. Tricky, but I took it all the way to down at a new Italian restaurant in
Mm,
Gramercy by your boy Andrew Tarlow, who friend of the pod. Awesome restaurants, the Marlowe franchise, diner, butcher shop, She Wolf, my favorite shit. He has a new restaurant called Borgo. Have you heard about this?
I've heard good things about it. I like a lot of his other restaurants.
Fuck yeah.
He's the same guy who, or his company, but is behind Marlowe and Sons, Diner, Achilles Heel, Romans, all places I like. All good spots for an expensive date. Fantastic.
Mhm.
But he's had a Brooklyn-based empire, and this is his foray into Manhattan. He's growing up. What was the crowd like? First of all,
I guess it's only been open for a month, but the crowd is very how should I say this? Chic. It may be more Chat Square than Dime Square. I get kind of I'm not a shy person, but I get a little kind of bashful. I saw a lot of old friends in that room waiting to get seated, but I didn't say hello. Shout out to Devin Ogis and the whole crew. Like they were with their parents. I didn't want to interrupt, but I saw many familiar faces, some art dealers, some art consultants, and Tarlo himself is a painter. So the scene
so it
was,
was getting the right kind of people. We're
I
talking
believe
about
so,
upwardly mobile
dou-
creatives. The
douchebag like myself.
like the cat let's say the catnip for any restaurant. Aging creative people with disposable income.
I mean, guilty as charged, but also like Diner kind of always catered to that. And it's funny because Diner and Marlowe, I feel like a little bit of their of its mythology was Beyonce and Jay-Z kind of strolling in intermittently. But as we know, it's because of our friend E who lives across the street. And it's a proximity of this one person. But it makes an empire, right? And it builds a reputation.
Yeah,
And
and he said we're only into movements.
right. But it was the right scene. It got good press. Um, sometimes you're in a triangle and you're like, "Am I the dickhead? Am I the triangle?" There's that moment for everyone, Ben. I wish you best when it happens to you.
It's the dickheads that we made along the way, on the
Yeah,
way to the triangle.
there were a bunch of aging triangle dickhead triangles in that restaurant, but it was welcome to see because we're old now and everyone there was of the same age, kind of. And yo, bro, the food kind of Chinese, I gotta say. You know how I feel about Italian food,
You're
Western
saying,
Chinese cuisine.
uh, wait, let me get this right. Are you accusing Italians of stealing Chinese food valor? I've never heard of such a thing.
This is not an accusation. This is facts. Marco Polo, stand up. Show yourself, Marco Polo. Show me these noodles before you went to China. I'd like to see these.
Marco Polo, raise your hand. Make
Yeah,
a noise so I know where you are.
Marco Polo, leave a comment down below.
The whole Marco Polo pool game, you remember this, of course.
Of course.
What was that in? Was that just because he was sailing around? I never really understood the whole closing your eyes saying Marco Polo thing.
I thought it's because when the chlorine hit your eyes, you would have to squint, and it was a takedown of uh, his failures as an explorer, stealing my culture, wearing it as a costume.
All right, well
It checks out.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That's the correct explanation of that game.
Good to know. So Borgo, following in the rich tradition of Marco Polo, beloved childhood game, is borrowing some flavor notes, if you will, from the Chinese.
And let me back that up with some cold, hard facts. I like to sit down at a new restaurant and do dealer's choice, kind of. It's like, there's 4 of us. Can you bring out 4 appetizers that you like from these 10? The menu was cool as hell. It kind of reminded me of Chez Matant. There was a sausage option. Shout out to Aiden. There was a martini too. Is a martini too a common drink, or is that originated by hot dog legs at Chez Matant?
That was the first that I have heard of it. I could understand how a second martini is something that may have a hive mind appeal.
Mm-hmm.
Martini 2, more martinis, as one might put it. But I will say, credit where it's due. The first time I can recall someone specifically saying Martini 2 was indeed Jordan Rodelli.
And the explanation of the Martini 2 was, he was like, "Hey, Quo, mate, you want a martini? You want one martini? Or you want to be a real bloke and have 2? Because a Martini 2 has less alcohol in it."
And you're like, that's a whole bunch of cod swallop, you cunt.
Hold on while I show you this is a real knife. Yeah, like I thought that was the original. And I mean, Tarlo had that space before Le Crocodile. So there was crossover. And I wonder if that joke transmuted or if it was a pre-existing joke that Jordo was making about an older drink. I'll never know.
I don't know.
I know about
There's no way of
Polo game, not about
ever finding out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who can say? There's no way of finding out.
Anyway, so we did dealer's choice. Appetizers are where the thunder is in every restaurant because mains are kind of like standardized. But appetizers are where chefs flex. So they brought out 2 of their signature dishes. Ben, listen to this fucking shit. It was a scallion fucking pancake, man. It was a piece of
the classic Italian delicacy, the scallion pancake. I love it with a little good Italian soy sauce.
Yeah, it was a flatbread with like some kind of, what do you call them? Alumen, some sort of like oniony element in there that I couldn't detect overtly. And then a deep fried squash swimming in sweet chili sauce. Bro, I was transported back to Beijing.
The boot, as they call it.
Yeah. The East Boot, as they call it.
I was thinking about how many top 5 lists we have, right? Oh, top 5 these, top 5 that. We don't really just rate like what are the top 5 like most goated countries?
All right, let's do it.
Right? I was thinking about that. I was like, that's tricky. We don't really do like oh, I don't know, like LeBron versus Kobe. Like, yeah. But what are like the most 5 goated countries though?
We kind of, I mean, world history is tough, and obviously, I have to ask: do you consider Taiwan a country? I don't want to put you on a political spot. I don't want to get us canceled. Is Taiwan its own country?
Oh, are you trying to Daryl Morey me out here?
That's right.
Will you be offended if I just say, it seems like China to me?
No, I'm Chinese, and if you ask me another question, I'm Taiwanese. I don't care.
Right.
My father was very diplomatic about that, literally.
Was it a test and I passed, or did I fail? I couldn't. I don't know.
You didn't know the rules of Marco Polo, so you passed a few minutes ago.
Okay, that's good. I mean, look, I feel like China is probably number 1 anyway.
Okay, in what terms? What is the criteria?
Just goated nations.
Okay, fuck it. China, if it includes Taiwan, number 1. Number 2.
I mean, it's tough China's just tough to beat. It's a lot of history there. It's big as hell. It's just a looming number one seed. Like, what is it, like number 4? I mean, I don't know. It's tough to knock China off that number one spot.
And Isaiah Stewart famously visited and brought back hash browns and French fries and hamburger patties covered in gravy.
Yeah, hard to knock off China. I mean, maybe they're not number one, but I don't know who else could be.
They're number one. Okay, number two.
They have to be. I think they have to be.
We're gonna argue because I think America's number 2. Young ass country with a lot of problems, but number 2.
I mean,
maybe
cultural, economic, militarily, like it's a strong resume. This is not some Brooke Lopez Hall of Fame case, you know.
We'll get to that in the next segment. But the quote unquote freedoms of America, where we can just sit back and make perfect pods and be the kings in our castle, that's kind of sick.
I know you could also do that in Canada or Mexico, and they're like only 2 countries that have the same border as us.
I know you can't really do that in China.
I mean, we've done it. We've literally made these pods while I've been in Mexico and in Canada.
I mean, the American.
There's proof of concept here.
Yeah. Okay. So who's number 3 then?
I mean, I feel like Russia is a very strong case. I'm not just trying to build a communist alliance. I'm just
Dr.
saying.
Zavago over here. Fuck that. No. I mean, top 5 maybe, but it's not the Jordan of countries.
No. One I think sleeper. Just getting it out there. Iraq. Sleeper.
Huge mathematics, art, religion.
I mean,
Iraq is
Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamia, Babylon. Like Babylon was the biggest city in the world for like multiple different generations. I'm just saying, Iraq, and then they And then they had, I don't know, a whole bunch of issues of late.
It's in our lifetime. It's been fraught, but if you read a book, bro, yes, incredible country, but over Egypt, because those fucking aliens that populated Egypt made some sick shit. We cannot explain that shit still.
No, Egypt is a strong one too. I just like the cradle of civilization is like, you just kind of get bonus points. Like, yeah, all this shit started here.
But what about Brazil? Wait, is Machu Picchu in Brazil?
I think it's in Peru.
Yeah, you think you might be right. All right, so I sold myself out there, but it has to be one of those civilizations, right? But are we just doing like historical? Like, where would you want to go? Because I kind of want to go to like New Jersey, England. I mean, France, kind of sick for a lot of years, not so much anymore. But
how much credit, so to speak, do you give like a colonial empire? Like, it matters. If we're just saying goated countries, like a big part of the United Kingdom's claim to GOAT status is being the largest empire ever with the evil contained therein.
Like, yeah, I was going to shout out Gladiator 2 shit in the Mediterranean, but I got to go Mexico, man. Mexico is the inventors of the best food on the planet, running for thousands of years.
You have great empires that rose and fell. And also, we haven't given enough credit to the natural geography of some of these places either. Mexico does have it all. You got deserts, you got jungles, you got beaches, you have mountains. Geographical diversity. Also, America, very strong in that category as well.
No love to like Scandinavia, huh? Like no Thor stuff, no like rotten shark, no like death, burning churches, death metal. Like,
I gotta say, man, when it comes to a place like Iceland, they've done great work with like healthcare, criminal justice system, excellent. You get yourself a nice 1-bedroom. They've done a good job with those things. But I'm pretty sure up until like 80 years ago, they were just kind of living in like mud houses.
Hut?
Like outdoor dining huts, but they were for indoor dining.
I just want a hut in my hut. Is there a handicap here? Because like, how many shots can you get off when you're like frozen for most of the year?
I mean, this doesn't mean they're bad countries. It just Yeah, it's hard to be goaded when like
Yeah,
you're.
yeah.
I mean, like you're on an island, you're getting rocked by a hurricane once every 4 years. And you got to start from scratch. Hard to goat.
Yeah. Man, there's also like Vietnam. I just watched, a chef's table with a Vietnamese chef, or Cambodia, Laos, that area. Kind of goaded too, right?
And also our understanding of the way that history has been preserved in certain places versus others. So like there are whole incredible amounts we don't know about ancient empires of Africa because they weren't they didn't have the same methods of passing along history,
Mhm.
or they were erased by colonialism. I mean, we are also dealing with a dearth of information about some of these places. So we just have to work and declare the goats with what we have.
And with every goat, there is a Razzie, the worst country. Fucking Australia, just cut it off. Florida, Australia, just cut them off. The country of Australia.
Yeah, there's I can think of like
I
one
do
good
enjoy
thing from it, and
Williamsburg.
it's the Martini 2, a classic
Oh,
Australian
the legs that
concoction.
shall be dogs. Yes. Shout out to Jordan.
Um, so I was actually talking to Jordan recently, and he was talking about this movie called The Substance. And this film includes a starring role from Demi Moore, who is, of course, goated in her own right.
Does she play Phil Necro as a pitcher, getting a mound check?
The illegal substance. She's
Yeah.
throwing a grease ball out there.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, saw it one time and I thought it was the worst movie of all time. Then I
Wow.
watched it again and kind of liked it. Then I watched it a fourth time and I decided I really love it. I don't know the intricate, machinations of his journey, but it did make me curious. I was like, all right, if Jordan went from hating it to loving it within 4 watches, who am I not to spend 2 hours on The Substance?
A viral movie, people talking about it.
Yeah. I watched it yesterday.
You went
I
to the
thought it was
theater,
like,
sat down and watched, or did you buy it?
no, I signed up for Mubi.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm on the free trial, so we'll
Mm-hmm.
see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm only one day in on my 7 day,
Okay.
free pass. So we'll see if I decide to keep it or not.
I have not seen it, but I have been following all the discussion on it. Can you give us a quick recap of the plot?
So no spoilers. Immediately, spoiler
Spoil,
after
spoil,
spoiler
spoil.
after spoiler. Just spoils. No, not. I will not give spoilers because the premise is known and reveals very quickly. Demi Moore is a Jane Fonda-esque star, an exercise aerobics dancer who is aging, and she realizes that her career is coming to an end because of her age. And she then takes this drug, which creates a situation in which she can also be younger. And I don't want to, reveal too much, but there is like, it's basically recapturing your youth, but at what cost? And the movie, early on, it feels kind of like a dumb version of a smart Cronenberg movie. It's a little, but it turns really gross out, which I respected.
I
Like
love
they
a good
really
gross
get
out. Yeah.
they really get gross out, and I was like, all right, that's cool. You actually made this movie pretty disgusting. I respected that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's technology or the way art is moving, but there's a level of like competence, but a level of like packaged kind of, and I say corporate only because it's been strategized. Like, get Andy McDowell's daughter, Demi Moore. Like, it's rich with stories here. Gross out, people like. It looks really good. It is accessible on Mubi. All this stuff, and I don't want to be that guy, but you mentioned Cronenberg, and I'm like, his oeuvre is this subject, and he kind of danced.
Kelly,
Huh?
Kelly,
Kelly?
Ouvra.
I
Sorry, I
just I,
apologize.
I was thinking about Kelly Oubre's face, and I just got lost. What was I thinking about?
I his oeuvre, his aura.
But he, Cronenberg kind of dances around and makes it like weird and funny, whether that be about video art screens, whether that be about a J.G. Ballard book about crashing cars and psychosexual stuff, or Existenz, which is like one of his grosser later movies, which is about the virtual space and video games and avatars and stuff. Like pretty rich, and he's expressed frustration in his audience maybe not understanding his movies fully. But then Substance comes out, and I'm like, oh, this is easy to understand, and I'm not sure if it's good or bad. And I have the fumes of Dean Kissick's Harper's article in my room, and I'm trying to grasp ideas out of the air in my indoor um, outdoor dining area, and I it struck me, and you can answer this for me. It struck me as a more refined way to talk about an idea we've been presented multiple times before by many artists, for good and for bad.
Yeah, I thought it was. I think that's a good way of putting it. I don't feel like it had hyper original ideas, but it was gross out, and I like the fact that they pushed the envelope. Like Demi Moore, I mean, I assume she'll probably get nominated because it was just a humiliating movie.
Mm.
She's lying around naked, and the camera's over her, older body, and
Right,
it,
right.
I mean, she played the role.
Mhm.
And I think there was some criticism about how much the camera lingers on whether it was her or versus like a younger version, and the curves, especially the like just the butt and the crotch and the tits of the younger woman. And I saw a critique saying, well, this is made for like the male gaze. And I'm like, maybe there's some truth to that, but I also thought, and this is just like a thought I had in response to hearing about that criticism, was that it's also kind of making fun of that. It wasn't just like, oh, guys are going to see this and be like, wow, she's this younger version of her is hot. It's like that was the point, that like all of this attention is like her butt. Like
In the middle,
all
yeah.
of this movie is basically just about like several body parts that are defying gravity at different times of someone's life. Like I thought that superficial sort of sex appeal was sort of part of the point, and I thought that made it smarter than it appeared. But I could be also overthinking it. I don't know.
Listen, Sixers games are about the female gaze when Kyle Lowry is active. Is it possible to have that commentary without Kyle Lowry playing 20 minutes a game? Like,
When Oubre is on the court, I'm like, this is just, we're seeing this through the Sixers bloggers' gaze. The confusion that they're feeling as they see the wave god himself on the court, and this complex stew of emotions and new feelings that are arising when he hits the hardwood.
listen, everyone's excited about Cam Thomas, but the elephant in the room is his wagon. He's got a legit wagon, and it's hard. It's the human gaze. It's hard to look away from it as he's dropping whatever 35, 40, 75 points. We're just watching two
Yab
dudes. Those cheeks.
Yabusele.
Huh? There's junk in that
Like
trunk.
he's built like a freight train. I'm like, is that what you meant to say?
uh, ge- ladies and gentlemen, you should see the movie The Substance and educate yourself about this.
I did enjoy it. But
Movies like that
take
are
this back.
cool. Yeah.
Take this back into what you were saying about what Dean wrote. I think I
Right.
mentioned him recently because he was hosting an election night party that I was at. I have not read this piece yet, and I will, because Dean's a smart, good writer, and I always enjoy wherever he's writing articles. But tell me more about this and how you think it applies to some of the things we were talking about.
Yeah, we mentioned Dean on this pod more than I think but because he's one of the few uh, writers and thinkers of our age group who is like throwing down haymakers, right? He's unsettled, he's dissatisfied, and he's willing to name names. And in this Harper's Magazine cover story, if I can just paraphrase it quickly, is his dissatisfaction with the way art has kind of taken a political identity based edge to it. And the language we use to talk about, and he focuses on the Venice Biennale and curators like Hans Ulbrich, is so filtered through our politics or our perceived politics that it becomes a gobbledygook of nothingness, which is kind of through the grinder of the dominance of corporations, of where money lies. Well, I wish he talked about money more in this article, because I think that's where the truth lies. But where museums hold their responsibility to their practice and not the viewer. It's like we forgot about the viewer because this stuff isn't fun, it's not interesting, and it's not anything to be consumed after the moment. And his grievances were many, and online he'll extrapolate more about how modern art has not brought technology in, etc., the internet. And I agree with him wholeheartedly in that these are awesome things to put out into the world. And thankfully, I disagree with him on like a visceral level through his details and his examples. And it got me thinking about like the release of Father John Misty and Kendrick in the same day, and the kind of rapper Kendrick Lamar is. And I mentioned like this corporate way of creating art now. And what I mean by that is like this high degree of competence. The floors are really high now. If you're in a punk band, there is some virtuosity somewhere. People can play music, people can act, people can rap, and people can make films and shows. The subversion is not in the act. The subversion is in the content. And if that content doesn't hold up to the standards we have as critics, then the real danger lies in the critique and not the art. And I think we do a whole pod about that. But especially hearing Kendrick Lamar's new album, I'm like, the action is in the response more than ever in my lifetime.
Well, I think Kendrick is a really great topic to discuss in this way because he is, a very technically gifted rapper. That has never been a question about
No
who
doubt.
he is. He is very good at rapping. He'll do hooks. He does voice changes. The creativity is very obvious in the way that he approaches making a song. But he also has this other appeal to people because he represents something.
Mm-hmm.
And he represents morality and righteousness in a way that other rappers are accused of lacking.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you think of Young Thug or a Lil Wayne or these other guys who are
Uzi,
like goated countries but rappers,
Mm-hmm.
it's like China, Iraq, but they're actually people and they're rappers.
Yeah.
But they don't have that mantle of the moral high ground that Kendrick has always, basically controlled with an iron fist. And that was one of the reasons that he was able to, embarrass Drake.
Exactly.
Was that he had the moral high ground. So this new album, I went through it quickly and I didn't listen to every song. I listened to a few. I listened to the production. The response seems to be excellent. I just am not that intrigued.
He's not an intriguing artist, right? But he is a wonderful artist. He delivers when he drops an album or a diss track or a show. It rarely disappoints because he knows what his audience wants, and there's signals that he puts out there of morality and ethics. And I'm psyched we're gonna head into basketball after this, but like He knows what his audience wants and he gives it to them, right? And it's kind of a beautiful message. I have no problems with it. It is, in my point of view, positive. What he's a positive battle rapper, backpack rapper. Uh, but there is a distrust I have just built into my like 90s DNA where I'm just like, if there's no danger here, sort of like the substance, I'm like, this doesn't feel dangerous anymore. Respect. I bow at these great artists at the top of their game. But like as a consumer, personally, it feels like Servo's Dime Square. You know what I'm
It's
talking
not. You're saying it's not Chat Square.
about. If it was Chat Square, I'd be pouring concrete in my bedroom right now. Right
So
now.
yeah, my thing is I'm everything you said about Kendrick is more or less where I'm at as well, and I do really like the fact that there is a West Coast rapper who has a high level of popularity, who champions their regional sound, however contrived or boring that may be to other people. I am glad that that sort of character exists. You listen to some of the production, like, oh, this is a West Coast rapper. He's putting West Coast rappers on his shit. He's doing his show in LA. I like that hometown like pride. I like the regionalism. It's cool. And I also like that there's a superstar rapper with a pretty obvious genetic tie to like Rascass and AC Alone and Freestyle Fellowship.
Yeah,
Like there's
for
this
sure.
cerebral, sort of nerdy West Coast rap biology that goes back to their version of whatever the New York lyrical scene would be,
Mhm,
an underground rap. And I think he is a direct descendant of that. Without question, he is.
mhm.
And I think that's cool that that person and that artist can have a number one song in the country. Great, great. That is fulfilling some of the promise of what like rap was supposed to be. Imagine this: a Rascass guy is the biggest rapper in the country. You're like, yeah, that would be the dream. Not necessarily my dream now, but it's
Yeah,
a dream, and
right.
I'm glad that that can be fulfilled. But yeah, personally, I listened to some of it. I'm like, yeah, he's a technically good rapper. He's rapping. The beats sound pretty good. It's a was it like Jack Antonoff or something? Did the
Yeah,
sequencing? Is that
sure.
what sound
Talked
said?
about the substance. Yeah,
It sounds good.
yeah.
It's like
Um, I have trouble locating what he's angry at. It was cool when he was angry at Drake, but like, the tropes would be like, I'm angry at major labels, I'm angry at um racists, I'm angry at the system, I'm angry at the White House. Things kind of like funneled right into his trough, right? Because like while his messages are ethical, they don't feel personal. They feel worldly, right? And as an artist producing that, I'm like, oh, this is a huge, I guess it's a huge pop star, but he has the trappings of a subculture. To your point, like West Coast rap, when it was dangerous, right? When NWA were talking about some of these same topics, they were discussing maybe more unsavory. Maybe there was more gore to your substance thing. Maybe we got to see more gross out stuff, which was appealing because it kind of signals um, a specific audience is trying to target. And Kendrick is like, the artwork is perfect. His presentation is perfect. His rapping is perfect. His messages are on point. Going after Drake is the lowest hanging fruit. And the way he went after Drake was even low fruit within that fruit. And like, respect to Kendrick, I think there's Damn was an album that really grew on me, but like, yo, we're in the angel share of our lives. I cannot waste it on Kendrick Lamar.
you know what we should be wasting our time on?
Ethical
Talking basketball.
basketball. I
Um,
hope I didn't say
so
anything out of place during the Kendrick thing. I don't want to delete any of that. But
No, I think everything you said made total sense there. But talking switching to hoops, and I mean, look, these ethical conundrums are all over the place, and in basketball. And one of the guys who people sort of dislike for aesthetic, ethical reasons, I guess we could say, is like Tyrese Halliburton. Like he doesn't have the aura. He doesn't have the victories. He smiles a lot. He's kind of goofy. There's an
He likes fashion.
insect. There's sort of an insect way that he moves on the court that at some points
He's a
is
wet noodle.
almost it's almost like physically like nauseating to watch him
Oh, come
sometimes.
on. I like him, man.
No, I like him too. I like him too. He's really
You're
good.
substance
There
pill.
but no, I'm saying there are some times when he's on the court and he's just moving in such a weird way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm saying I could see how that would have a lack of appeal to certain people.
He's slithery.
I'm not. Yeah, there's a slitheriness to him. He's got a weird jump shot form. Yeah, I don't know. It's like he's kind of like a mantis.
Oh, he's the opposite of Anthony Edwards. Physically, people love the way Ant looks when he plays, and physically, I think people don't love the way Hallie looks when he plays. Like,
That's
yeah.
yes. This is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
And basketball is an aesthetic conversation. I mean, we just got talking about the aesthetic king of Cam Thomas, the aesthetic king Cam Thomas. But we bring up Halliburton because the haters are rejoicing now. Something's wrong. He is not the same all-star top 10 Halliburton he was when he was healthy last year, and he got injured. He looks different, and he's looked different for long enough in this season where it's not like he'll bounce back. Small sample. We're just like, is something wrong with him? Is he secretly hurt?
Well, he had some pretty shitty injuries last year, and there was a clear schism in his season where early on, in my opinion, I thought he was, an MVP candidate,
I
top three, top four early
Yeah.
on. The Pacers had the best offense in the NBA, and he was fantastic. And then he got hurt, and he stopped shooting well, and his efficiency absolutely just plunged,
Yeah.
and his effectiveness, even when the Pacers made their, we can say it was a run, it was enough of a run.
They beat the
went to
Knicks.
Eastern
Fuck it.
Conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Awesome.
He wasn't really good during any of that period of time either.
He was injured though, right? Like he was in and out of games, in and out of possessions. And to your point, I just want to pepper that with some color. Like he was so good in the beginning of the season that his overall stats excellent last year. Like his true shooting was 605, which is above average, I think, from last year. BPM was 6.9. Like all-star, no doubt.
Yeah. So here's one note, and you may have heard this. I did not notice this myself. I feel like I read it somewhere, but I'm going to give you the numbers. He has outrageous home and road splits this year. Just
Yes, yeah.
staggering.
His
So
the phrase I heard was he's a sleep in your own bed player of the year.
it's not a Drew Hill song. So at home, true shooting percentage of about 60%, averaging 21 points and 9 assists. And then you look at on the road, true shooting percentage of 44%, which is, of course, absolutely just atrocious. Shooting 22% from three,
These are bad games.
31% from the floor overall, and averaging 12 points per game. So wild schism between his home and away stats.
Yeah, he looks bad, and the team is like fine. The team is what they're supposed to be doing, but like the fall of this one, or I loathe to bring up Ben Simmons here because there's injury that we don't know about, and in my humble opinion, there's the mental that we don't talk about enough. There's depression, melancholy, sadness, all these things that occur with these human beings that are tough to quantify. But Halliburton, I thought was locked and loaded this season, where I don't feel Simmons has been locked and loaded since his All-Star years. I cannot explain Halliburton. I think he's just slumping.
Well, I mean, the home and away thing is funny because technically it shouldn't really matter,
Do you believe it?
right?
Like 17 games,
Well,
do you believe it? That's a
my
lot of
suggestion would
games.
be that no, it is, and I would say that if he has, say, a back injury,
Right, right.
that maybe travel is bothering him, maybe sleeping in a hotel room, whatever the case may be, maybe it's stiffening up and he's not able to perform the same way. Like, I don't believe it from just like a mental thing, like necessarily. Doesn't really seem to make sense that a guy who hasn't had, I don't know that we've ever seen that specific variety of yip when I'm trying to think
Mhm.
about it. Like someone
Well,
who's like, yeah, I'm a knockdown 3-pointer at home. On the road, I'm just cheeks.
Mo Cheeks. I think. Well, the smartest basketball minds I know, like the analytics people and the people who are like kind of right about this shit, kind of trace Halliburton struggles back to that photo he posted of him with three girls from the club
Hmm.
of the same kind of prototype of person, and him commenting on something else, but that image going viral. And one's like, "Whoa, Halliburton! Halliburton's aura is taking shape, and we kind of know what this guy's about."
Was
And
this was this when he was talking with 50 Cent, or
he was
was this
talking
a?
shit about something, and there just happened to be three adult women next to him. He's like, "Just got back from the club. I wanted to chime in on this," and we were like, "Excuse me, Tyrese." It was
Maybe
very
he's just a.
revealing
Mm, mm,
of his
he's,
lifestyle, and I don't think anyone was like, "Oh, he should be in the lab. He should be." That's not the right Mamba mentality. I think everyone's just like, "Really, Halliburton?" And he hasn't been the same since.
hmm, snowblind, if you will.
Mm, that
But he for his career, no real difference in his home and away shooting splits.
mhm.
Last year, actually shot better on the road. So I'm gonna say that I'm gonna say it's nothing, and it's just a weird statistical anomaly, or it is an injury. Those would be my two options.
Is it like
I
his
don't
wrist or
think it
something?
would be mental
Yeah.
because it has never seemed to be an issue, even last year when he was hurt. Like it would be a totally new thing happening.
You
So
said
I
the Y
would say
word.
that
Yeah. I don't know.
I would say this would be like third down my list of issues with him.
The power
But
ranking of
that
issues.
but
Yes.
that said, he also stopped shooting with any competency last year after he came back from injury, and
Yep.
he was out for a
Yep.
long time, and he came back and he just couldn't shoot.
I mean, I always wonder that. I always wonder how like dudes can rebuild their Achilles heels or knees and like kind of return to the same form. I'm like, what? Isn't every injury transformative? But it's hard to observe that, and I think that's the most plausible theory that his injury, something happened with his injury where it's not catastrophic, but he has yet to come back to the curve of his career. It's like these are still outlier games until they no longer are.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is plausible that travel and not being at home is aggravating a part of his body. I think that's somewhat plausible. I mean, these are all plausible explanations, but it's only disappointing to me because I thought that Halliburton had a chance to be in that top five conversation.
I
That he
agree.
was going to be. It's like, oh, he's like another Luca. He's another, like, not Trey Young, but okay, he's another one of this category of the LeBron style offensive players, the ones you can run a whole offense through.
God tier
And
player.
yeah, a god tier offensive player at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the truth is, he's kind of more like Trae Young, but he doesn't even necessarily have Trae's psychotic chuckery.
Or
Like Trae's letting
personality.
it rip.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
But the thing is, Halliburton does have personality. It's just kind of dorky.
yeah,
Like
it's more
yesterday,
like right.
he got Kuz to kind of get him with a flagrant foul, and he was baiting him, and then Kuzma got mad and kind of shouldered him, and Halliburton sold it, went flying, and then Kuz had to go out of the game, and they were talking shit to each other. So I mean, like, Halliburton is like a competitor. He's spicy in terms of like he gets into it with people and stuff.
It's mad at Kuz from retiring from Fitz. Yeah, like, I mean, I feel like there's many L's I've personally taken recently. The Celtics fraudulent championship, Trump winning, Halliburton sucking. Like there's these micro kind of stories that, or macro, but in the NBA, there's little things where I'm like, oh, I wish that went the other way. And it makes me think of Wembyana. And I think that's going to be fine. But the hope I had for Wembyana being a new, surreal kind of performer is still in waiting because, I mean, I kind of wanted to bring in his shooting that became viral, a statistic. I believe before his last game, someone had pulled up a stat that said 125 shots from three and 125 shots from not three. And that got a lot of people debating our beloved topic of ethical basketball.
Yeah, Wemby has been really flinging up threes, and some games it's sort of jarring where he's mostly floating around above the arc and taking 10 threes. I know in one of my pickup run group chats that got some people heated. What is this bullshit? Took 10 threes? Why is he taking 10 threes?
Wait, this is a pickup run, not a grill master chat? You guys aren't talking about like grilling hamburgers in your living room?
Well, the guy who's objecting about it is the 6'6" and takes 10 threes. So I didn't even bother interrogating what was going on there. But I mean, I get it on one hand. You know, there's this idea that he should be getting his ass in the paint. That why is he doing what a guard can do at 7'4"? And like, it's not untrue, right? I mean,
I kind of
Jared McCain should be taking 10 threes because he's a really good shooter and he's 6'1" or 6'2".
Anthony Edwards is also, last week, the topic was, fuck him. It's like, are you taking too many threes? It's like, fuck him,
So I have one point about Wemby, and that's, I think for the season, he's shooting about 34% from three, which is not great.
33-6.
So 34%, that is giving you,
Better
above
than last
average.
year. Yeah.
Well, it's above average offense in the half court. So he's not hurting you in the half court. It's more that like
he's taking 9 threes a game.
Well, it's also just not that efficient overall. The main thing though is that he's been shooting 40% for the last couple weeks. That's a different thing. If Wemby is a 40% 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
I just mean if he can shoot high 30s, 40 at that volume, which is clearly what the Spurs are trying to do. The Spurs are not stupid. They're doing a thing.
Sure.
Because we've talked in the past about Wemby's sort of inability to score in a conventional way.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not that good operating from the elbow yet.
Yeah.
He takes bad shots. He can get them off, but he likes fadeaways and things like that.
Yep.
To me, them having Wemby take a lot of high value shots, even if he's not making them at a great clip, brings not only the opposing center or whoever out of the lane, even though they're swapping him, at times.
Yeah.
He's always back on defense. And I was looking at some of those numbers, when they've had their starting lineup.
Oh.
Spurs are killing people, killing them. They're they're good.
Yeah. I mean,
So
my argument with that, whatever, I agree with all you said, but my argument is like, would they be better if, like, Wemby's taking half his shots from three? The thing I'm noticing is free throw rate was 30% last year. It's 20% this year.
which is not great because he is a fantastic free throw
Yes.
shooter.
And he got so much better this year. Defensively, he's right there. He's getting better overall as a player. But I wonder, because I don't think the cliche of his opponent wanting him to take that three like Giannis is necessarily a truth in a game. But I'm okay with him taking 10 threes. If he starts hitting them, you're done. But he probably doesn't miss many dunks, and he can have all the dunks he wants and put our players in foul trouble. If he wants to split up his game 50-50, if I'm his opponent, I can live with that. And the Spurs aren't like excellent, and they're interesting, but they're not like he's not floating them like Jokic floats the Nuggets. And he's 21, that's young, but that's not extremely young. We're getting to see Wemby Wemby's persona in the NBA. I think I have downgraded him from like a number one all time God player to like Luca, Hall of Fame, obviously, All Star every year he's healthy enough. But like this was his scouting report, and I don't know, 85 games in, okay.
I don't know because his improvement at shooting, I think, is going to be proven very legitimate. I think that he's going to be an excellent 3-point shooter. I think, he doesn't take a lot of shots from mid range, but he can make them.
He's
He's
gonna have
obviously
hot
great.
runs. Yeah,
I don't. I just think.
and styles make
I
fights.
think. I just think. I just think he will eventually figure out a way to become an efficient scorer, and I think that's kind of what the Spurs are doing.
Yeah,
Is they're trying to figure out what's the diet that gets him there, and also with him on the court, they're beating, or with the current starting lineup, they're beating people by like 30 points per 100 possessions. They have the best defense in the NBA. They have the best transition defense in the NBA. So I think there is a secondary part of this, which is that when Wemby's up top, you can't ever score a transition bucket against the Spurs. You just can't do it. He misses a three, you get a rebound, you run out. You're not even taking that shot. You're just straight up avoiding him in the paint. And I would be really surprised if that wasn't at least one of the components to the Spurs saying, no, it's cool. Because they're not putting him in the corner. These are intentionally middle of the, above the arc, above the break. These are deep threes. I just think they're doing some calculus here and saying him taking that three that creates spacing and ensures that he will be back on defense every single play is mathematically worth it. Long term, does it mean it's great for him? Who can say? But the Spurs are going to make the playoffs.
They're 9-8 and 10th in the Western Conference, in a good conference, so they should make it. But I fell into my own trap. Like the haters are trying to divide and conquer my brain because there's really nothing much to see here. He just has to keep on playing. He is going to be incredible and better than he is now, for sure, probably. But what I really want to get to is like, why is there always an opportunity for someone to call out a 3-point shooter as unethical? Like we've been through Edwards already, now Wemby, and then as soon as there's another, like if Dalton Connect becomes a 3-point bomber for the Lakers, are people going to be like, that's not the right way to play basketball?
Sure. But I don't know. They don't really do it to white guys. Well, they did it to Dirk. But the weird thing about Dirk, ironically, was that he didn't really take that many threes. He was just a jump shooter.
Yeah, exactly. Mid-range god.
He shot kind of the same as Aldridge or KG. They weren't high volume 3-point shooters at all.
It's like, back to the Kendrick thing. It's like sometimes I want to be shocked by rap, and rap has been been around for so long at this point, lifetimes, that like the scariest, most scandalous thing that I can imagine hearing a rapper say is be like, "Yo, this is for my white community." I'd be like, "Holy shit, are you serious?" Like it would be insane, and not with hate, but just like, "Yo, I got a lot of poor white friends who need to come up through the grind and achieve like their destiny tells them they are." Like in basketball, we're still stuck on the white guy. The white short guy is the shooter, and the tall black guy is the bruiser, right? Whether he be French or 7'6", it's like get your ass in the paint, shut up and dunk. Is that still exist? You think?
I mean, people said it about Embiid. They're saying it about Wemby.
Yeah.
Totally. Also, just I mean, Wemby's been hurt. He had his first game back against Golden State
Right.
2 nights ago.
Right.
But over his last 7 games, again, we're talking about small samples here. His true shooting is like 63 over those.
But
So
we know he's good. We know he's good, right?
Oh
Culturally,
no, I was just getting around to that the main argument that someone could say about getting his ass in the paint would just be that he isn't that good of a 3-point shooter. It's hurting his efficiency. That's how you would become
right.
like right in this. Because the obvious counterpoint is that if he's making 40% and if he is a 63, 64% true shooting percentage, then you are kind of like running out of runway for the haters. It's like,
But the haters aren't even
well,
digging this deep, right? The
oh, I
haters are
know.
just
I'm with you. I'm saying I'm giving the haters like a little leeway because he is shooting 33% from deep, and he isn't that efficient for the season in comparison to guys like Jokic or Embiid normally is, or Luka and SGA, that cohort of the league's very best players. But he might be, and that's going to really make that argument about getting his ass in the paint a little tougher, and then solely emotional.
yeah. I mean, there is no doubt that no sin bin that Patrick Mahomes is like up there with Tom Brady, greatest of all time, and the white quarterback trope has been kind of toppled in the NFL. And of course those kind of not prejudices, but storylines are ones that kind of cross over to the NBA. Like Knicks fans calling for Tyler Kolek to get some minutes. My desire to see Reed Shepherd on the court is like, oh, he must be better than McCain. I think he is better than McCain. But like when people debate how Anthony Edwards and Victor Wembanyama play, that's where it gets interesting, right? Because they're like, you're not doing it the right way. And you see people like cutting sizzles to Kobe Bryant's jumpers. And I'm just like, we're still stuck in the Ras Kass era in the NBA.
Well, it's funny because when people have an idea, they can't be dissuaded by being wrong a few times.
Right.
Right? It's like, all right, I've invested in this idea that you can't win shooting threes, and then the Warriors do it, and you're like, all right. And then
Right.
you just bring it back a little later, like, wait a minute.
Right.
Joel Embiid shooting too many threes. Wemby shooting too many threes. You can't win like that. Like, we're so fucking back.
You're here.
Like,
You're hearing silence
just
about the
biding your
Celtics
time.
this year, right? The Celtics are bombing, and you don't hear the same voices pumping them up as you did previously because they're doing the Warriors thing.
But it's
And they're
also based on the fact that last year they won the title, so it validated this kind of approach.
Right.
But during the year, people were 100% complaining that the Celtics too many threes, but then they won. So now it's like, if they can just lose this year, I can get back my Celtics are shooting too many threes take. I can't wait to have it.
I mean, the morality of what happens within the dimensions of the basketball court are solely based on the characters, right? Like we pretend that this isn't the right way to play a game. But I'm like, but who are you talking about? Are you talking about Anthony Edwards? Are you talking about Dalton Connect? Like these are two different conversations. They're both about basketball within the same parameters, but I kind of hear dog whistles out there.
Personally, I don't see race. I don't see creed or color. I see height, Andrew.
Oh,
And I see a guy who's 7'4" and needs to get his ass into that paint.
all I see is
That's what I see.
Glenn Race. But also, I'm not talking dog whistle, and I know that's a racial thing, but I'm also talking about like physiognomy and laziness and all these things about work ethic and the irony of Wemby being like, I thought the NBA players worked harder. And we talked about the joke in that. It was just like, motherfucker, you're 7'6". Your logo is an alien. You're here because you worked hard, but you're also here because you're from outer fucking space. And
And now he's too lazy to get his ass in the paint.
or to work on his shot, or to win a championship. This is never ending. Or to win 6 championships in a row, right? This is a never ending.
No, I love it, and it's great because MJ created this. Kobe latched on,
Mhm.
but it was also self-serving. They won a bunch of titles.
Yep.
It works, but it doesn't work when you're like a second-year player
Yeah.
shooting 33% on a team that's 9-8.
Yeah.
It's like you guys just aren't working hard enough. You just don't want it like I do. Like, okay, well, why don't you want yourself into being a 40% three-point shooter, dog?
Why don't you want yourself into getting Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis on your team? I kind of want.
Exactly.
I kind of want to segue, but still stay kind of on this because getting Wemby is just like a monumentally fortuitous thing to have happened to any franchise, and it happened to the Spurs. And it got me thinking about the draft, especially with McCain succeeding and people wondering if in a redraft, is he top 3? Is he number 1 in this kind of like early pre-draft, redraft era? And it got me thinking of like the semi-victory lap Nets fans are taking over the Mikal Bridges trade. Granted, I'm kind of on their side. Like they should be happy about it. Also, that team disrupted the balance of basketball by having a super team and then kind of like slothing off pieces. So I'm annoyed at that. So all these riches, quote unquote, that the Nets acquired through the draft are because they couldn't handle prosperity in the right way, and that's not a good thing. But they have these picks. They have 5 or 6 of the Knicks picks, number ones, and they're like, what if we get Cooper Flag? What if we re-sign Cam Thomas and his wagon, retain the other Cam Johnson because he's kind of amazing, and add I see your Wemby, and we're gonna counter you with Cooper Flag out east.
Yeah, they're calling him Julius Randle with hops.
I am not ready to raise the white flag just yet. What if he dropped in? He was just like, I'm doing this all for my white friends out there. That would be incredible. And he's just talking about Derek White and Jahidi White. But so I was thinking about like, imagine winning a lottery and getting Wemby or Zion, or let's say even identifying Jokic as a number 1 overall. I'm just like, holy shit. What if you get Cooper Flag? And I'm like, fuck, the Spurs are still like not ready. There's still a lot of work to be done in San Antonio, and they got the guy. LeBron wasn't an immediate layup. I'm like, if Cooper Flag goes to the Sixers or New Jersey, there is no guarantee of anything, man, because however great Wemby is and delivering on all the things we hoped for, the Spurs are really far away from being a contender.
That's true, but I'm a believer that the Spurs were kind of shadow tanking last year. They had some lineups that were extremely good, and they just sort of didn't play them a lot. And this current lineup right now, I'm not saying they're a contender. They're obviously not. So I'm with you on that.
This
But
Keldon didn't turn out to be great. Sohan
I'm
is
not
awesome but hurt, you know.
I'm not a huge fan of either of them. They're cool. They're good. Keldon,
Castle, Logan.
I'm not a Keldon guy. Vassell,
No,
I
no one's
like.
a Keldon guy.
Yeah.
Like, but you know
I
what I
mean,
mean, right?
someone out there is a Keldon guy. Respect to that person.
Like, if I would be so wounded if the Nets with the Knicks pick somehow got Cooper Flag, and then after a while I'd be like, all right, can you beat the Knicks?
Well, sure. I mean, I think there are also varying degrees of shittiness of teams who are able to be bad enough to get the number one pick, right?
Mhm.
Because there is the example of, say, the Cavs who had Kyrie and some other components, and then they got the number one pick and used it to get Kevin Love, and then LeBron came back. I just mean
For sure.
they're like the
There's ways to do it.
Spurs
Yeah.
when they originally got Tim Duncan. That was a good team who ended up tanking and getting a top pick.
And
So
Duncan was the
right,
personality to stay.
right. So the Spurs were pretty heavily rebuilding when they got Wemby, and they've really improved by adding Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul, who are like not
Still
parts
awesome.
of
Yeah.
a team going forward. They are helpful. They're helping them win games. They're good players, but these aren't the point guard and the power forward on the Wemby team that's going to win a title.
I think they're going to draft a power forward, and Castle is ready.
But this kind of goes to your other point, though. Castle looks good.
Yeah.
But if you just had Wemby, Castle, and young guys, are you back to winning 21 games?
Yeah.
Like Chris Paul and Barnes are making this team a lot better because they're pretty good players.
Yeah.
If you had Keldon, Champagny, my guy, Brooklyn's own.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying they do have some parts, so we'll see. But I think with the Nets, I was at the game against the Hornets last week, and Sean Marks was standing a few feet away by like the path where people come in and out, and this guy started like
Down
really
under?
screaming at him.
Yeah.
Guy started really yelling.
Mhm.
One of the fans, he was wearing a Nets jersey. It's like really trying to get his attention. And Sean Marks just kind of ignored him. But I was watching, and the guy turns around, and he's wearing a jersey that's number 5, and it says Picks as the name above it.
That's so sick.
And I was like, all right, this
Super
nerd
dorky.
got the 5 picks thing, and he's losing his mind when he saw Sean Marks. Like, hey, look. And Sean Marks just was like fully ignoring him. But I thought I was like, all right, that's a real Nets fan. Okay, fair.
I mean, I'm getting a lot of optimism from my Nets friends. Extreme optimism, like gloating. And I kind of agree with them because like Mikal Bridges is depreciating almost at a Halliburton level. He had a few good games, but he's not the same that he was in Phoenix, certainly. And like, what else you got? They can't be like, ooh, Cam Johnson's my guy. It's like all these are transient pieces, right? Into the next era. So all you can do is look forward, and like I do love those picks. I'm looking at the draft now, like Ace Bailey, like kind of doesn't look that good yet. A tough couple games, tiny sample size, but I'm like, maybe the Knicks dealt the right picks in the right time because there's no Wembayana in sight. And I think Cooper Flag is going to be an all-star, but he's Julius Randle with dog. Um, I want to celebrate the demise of the Knicks because of their hubris, because of they looked in the mirror and love what they saw. And I don't really that's not fun, you know? They went from a really lovable team to just a corporate version of a lovable team. Uh and the branding is on point. They got Abu Dhabi shit on. They have their taller, good-looking stars that are going to be household names. but they're not as good or interesting. And like, fuck them. I want those 5 picks to the Nets to be good, but the optimism coming from Nets Nation is odd to me because that franchise has probably been the biggest embarrassment in the NBA.
Well, the other thing about that, the Nets rebuild is, I get it. We went through the process with the Sixers, and I understand the joy of asset collection as a fan of a bad team. Like that's like the lifeblood of rooting for a team that is not putting a good product on the court. Is that we can have all these future stars, they can be used to trade for stars. We can get anybody, and you look at OKC, and of course that's going to make you optimistic, and that's a good thing.
Yep.
I've said for years that being a fan of a bad team is like the easiest job in sports.
Cubs, Red Sox, for sure.
People talk about it as if it's challenging. Like, oh, they went through a few hard years, those Sixers fans. No, they were fun. You were watching young guys. There was always
fun.
some new player coming into the fold. You'd research them, be like, Elliot Williams. I think he's a keeper. And then they'd be gone. You'd be like, all right, Tony Roten is the future. Everyone get on board. Michael Carter Williams.
AJ McDaniel.
He's the new god.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, honestly. And then
Brokaw,
they win a game.
Broke boy.
And the thing is, I was never one of those fans who rooted for them to lose in a real game because I like the players and I don't want the players to fail. So,
but when it got tight,
I'd be
towards
happy.
the draft,
I'm saying I'd be happy they lost when I saw the box score later. But watching it, if I like these guys, I don't want them to brick a shot and lose. I want to see them happy. That's just me.
Well,
but
you're
I
not
understand.
even looking at the scoreboard, right? You're just looking at plays. You're looking at shots, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, I think it's a very easy job being a fan of a bad team that's trading away good players to get assets, putting young guys out there who may or may not be a part of the long-term plan. It's a breeze. It's a breeze. Every now and then, your team goes out and gets blown out by 40. You know what? You can turn the TV off earlier. You can go find yourself an outdoor dining shack and see your friends. You don't have to watch your 2-17 team take a pummeling at the hands of Lob City.
Dude, this reminds me of a take I've always had that is my darkest, most offensive take maybe in life, which is, they always say like babies and young kids like getting sick or even worse is like the most tragic thing. I don't think so. I think it's like the 20-year-old. The 20-year-old who has experienced a little bit of life and knows what it's ahead and is conscious of their own demise. That is the most tragic thing. And I kind of hear what you're saying. It's not hard to be a fan of a bad team. It's not hard to be a fan of a great team. It's really hard to be a fan of something in between, where it's just like kind of good with a few moves. The Sixers, we could win a championship. Oh, we're the worst team in the league. That is crazy. What happened with Philly this year is like more difficult than just being like, there's no chance this year at all. Because that roster is excellent. The risk was injury, and the risk came to full.
One thing about the Sixers season this year is that it is funny.
Oh, I mean, always funny.
I can't say I'm enjoying this whole 3-13 wave that they're on. It is funny though. I don't really want to get too much into the Sixers misery because we've done it before, but I do have one take that I want to get out here for the record. And it's about the bench, because over the summer, when they were accumulating this incredibly boring group of small old men, I was like, I don't like this bench at all.
Easy. Yeah.
No, there are small old men that I have a dear spot.
Thank you.
In my heart
time with every week. Yes.
But this particular group of small old men that the Sixers were putting together, I said, this is not a basketball team. This is not the intention of being a basketball team. This is not supposed to be functional. It's not supposed to be complementary. This is not the group that is going to go into the playoffs as the Sixers roster. That's not the point here. And people were disagreeing with that. They were saying, this is a good, deep team. This makes sense. I'm like, you don't have 5 6'2" guards on the team and 3 of them with a median age of 35 and say, this is how we beat the Celtics. This is how OKC takes an ass whipping. It's with Eric Gordon and Drummond. No, man.
No.
This is a collection of movable, stackable contracts. It is a consequence of last summer's salary cap management plan carrying over to the roster this year. 60-70% of this team is just trade filler. There is no reason that KJ Martin is on this team, except for the fact that they want to trade him down the line, and he makes a certain amount of money. And because of the restrictions of the cap, you have to have these veterans on there, and you're allowed to sign them. So these guys like Drummond, he's $5 million waiting to be tacked onto a trade. Same with Kelly Oubre, maybe even with Caleb Martin. I'm saying it's possible, but they can stack up about $30 million to use in different ways, attach them to draft assets, and add players of consequence. But the issue here, as you pointed out, they rolled snake eyes when it came to the health. They thought they could get through a couple months with this bullshit-ass roster because of having 3 all-stars. It'll be fine. Even if they're mediocre, they can go and get some help. The problem is all 3 of those guys and Lowry all got hurt within the first 2 weeks, and all of a sudden they are taking these players who were there to just be weighted. They weren't supposed to play. Reggie Jackson is not on this team to play basketball. Eric Gordon is supposed to be getting like 5 minutes a game tops. And that's not what the plan was, but it's the plan now.
See, I thought when you said you had 1 point to make about the Sixers, I'm looking at their basketball reference page. This new stat they have, SD percentage, snitch detection percentage. Ooh,
yep.
Joe's been lacking a little bit. I gotta say, usually if you're a competitive team, it's easy to snuff out the snitches, the rats in your locker room. What is this confusion? Did Joe snitch on himself? What is happening inside those doors?
Right. So there's a rat in the Sixers locker room. And, I much like Pistol Pete of Terror Squad, live by the slogan KAR, and it's kill all rats. And Joe, I can't stand a rat. You're over here as the rat czar.
Number 2.
So what happened? So there was a team meeting. Apparently it was pretty short too. It was like 5 minutes. And this wasn't long. And Maxie was like, hey, Joe, you're our guy. Can you set a better example and stop running late, show up a little more promptly? And he's probably like, yeah, totally, dude. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's like, oh, yeah. You're right. You're right.
Basically, I will stop one of us on the pod every Monday.
I'll stop being tardy.
Yeah.
My fault. But this gets told to Shams. Now, there are suspicions about who it could be. Maybe it was someone tied to Clutch. But that could be Tyrese Maxey himself. It could be Nick Nurse. But it could be someone who has nothing to do with this at all. Everyone probably follows Shams. I mean, Eric Gordon might be like, hey, guess what? There's a lot of people on this team who have no ties to the organization, no loyalty to anybody, because they're literally short old men who joined the team a few months ago. Does Reggie Jackson care about bad-mouthing Joel Embiid? Why would he?
He's a shit talker. Remember, he always tries to fight his old teammates.
So, point being, someone ratted, Shams posted it, and then Joel Embiid embarked on a plan to smoke out the rat.
Snitch detector, SD percentage, let's go. There has been no information revealed to us yet, but maybe Joe found the rat. We won't know until someone rats that out. And then there'll be another rat to suss out, to detect.
But there was a second follow-up, which I liked.
A second rat?
But I that was Embiid's dedicated to finding the rat. I'm like, was that the rat putting that out? Or was that Joe putting that out?
A rat would say.
I got to tell you, man, I really want this. I'm stressed.
Yeah.
I want to know who the rat is.
I'm stressed.
I I would like this to last all season. I want there to be red herrings.
Their SD
You know,
percentage got to go up.
Joe finds some clues in the locker room that makes it look as if it was Gershon Yabusele. A ferocious confrontation occurs. Turns out it was a red herring. Someone set Joe up.
Right. The rat is setting a trap for someone else. A big hunk of cheese in that locker room. Oh, don't
I want
don't smell it.
Joe is outside of a Wawa in his Skylark,
Yeah.
eating a sandwich, drinking his cold coffee.
I'll have a hoagie with just provolone. He's the rat.
He
Just
sees
Swiss
someone
cheese.
someone in a trench coat darts off down an alley. He's spilling his coffee. He peels out, throws the hoagie wrapper out of the window.
I was listening to an episode of podcast 520, Jeff Teague's podcast, and they were trying to explain what's going on in Philly, the situation in the locker room, Joe's injuries, his maybe like him being injured forever now. And they made a good point. I kind of don't remember enough. They're like, Joel Embiid is 40 years old. It's like we're just stating facts, but birth certificates coming from Cameroon and Africa are always notoriously doctored. So in Kansas, he might have been 23. They're just like, he's 40. He sounds like he's 40. He looks like he's 40, and he's playing like he's 40. And the three guys on that pod were like, yeah, facts. And I was like, there it is. That's what's happening to the Sixers right now. And he's just sleeping through meetings like a regular old man does, nodding off in his
I don't like
quarterback
that
chair.
everyone from Africa is always accused of being a decade older than they are.
Why wouldn't you, right? If there's $500 million to make, do what you got to do.
Oh no, I mean I understand why people do it. I'm not arguing that it's wrong to lie about your age. I feel like well, Joe's actually 47 years old. Like, fuck.
I know. Yeah, it does sound racist, and then it's not. It's just you lie on your birth certificate to make your work opportunities bigger.
I mean, it's also happened with Ersan Ilyasova. And now, in retrospect, we go back and you look at that Sixers front court. It's like just a couple senior citizens out there collecting their art benefits.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, man. I mean, famously, Buddy Hield, we know he's 40. Obi Toppin is honest. He's also 40. But Joel Embiid, he's acting like an old man. And this is the time of your career where you segue from an MVP big man to a detective.
I was in my office. A dame came in. Not even Lillard.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got to find the snitch.
The snitch is obviously Nick Nurse, right? You can't trust someone who's that into feet. The agony of defeat. But like, it's Nick Nurse. Just one look at him. I judge a book by its cover. Nick Nurse is the rat.
Yeah, someone had also pointed out that he used the phrase elephant in the room a lot.
That's right. And they're like, he has to be the one. But everyone uses that phrase, because how else are you going to say that?
And how else are you going to frame up Nick Nurse to make him look like the rat? Because, the snitch hunter is going to be chasing down leads, and you got to give him a red herring.
Yeah, and this is classic misdirection. It's just like, well, if I use the phrase that Nick Nurse always uses, they're going to pin it on Nick Nurse.
Like, yeah, Joel Embiid, who has really ugly feet. You're like, I know. Nurse?
Listen,
I know who would say that.
Joe's knees might be toast, but his feet are exquisite. Like Nick.
Oh, I know who said
that. There's one guy.
We got him.
But this will be ongoing. We'll have Snitch updates every week about Joe's progress. Detective Joe, as they say.
Yeah, I wonder if he can, enlist someone like Oubre. You're the only one I can trust. Guaranteeing then that Oubre was in fact the rat.
Is CJ Watson still available? Is he around?
I like that. Earl Watson? What's he up to?
Well, he could just expedite the whole thing and hire Rashawn Holmes and CJ Watson.
I don't think we can do any better than that.
It was not the perfect pod until that. So
No, that sealed the deal.
yeah,
That was what they call the Angels share, Andrew.
the devil's cut.
And that's what we're about to do right now. The Devil's cut off the mic.
Cookies.
Cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.